DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse, is the one-stop shop for all your footwear needs. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW has what you need, but more importantly, they have what you didn't even know you wanted. You never know what you'll find at DSW. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or DSW.com.
From Estero, Florida, this is a One Extraordinary Marriage show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug hotline at 858-876-5663. Or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're exploring the art and science of non-sexual touch, how the smallest physical gestures shape connection, safety, and even desire.
And here's a quote out of the Kinsey Institute that says, couples who touch each other more tend to be happier. From back rubs to gentle caresses to hand-holding, the more contact couples have, the more satisfied they tend to be. We're going to be exploring that in today's episode, but first, we start every episode with a hug. And for those of you that are brand new, a hug is an opportunity to really celebrate you, to celebrate what you're doing in your marriage, to maybe celebrate an aha or a revelation that you've had. And this hug comes from a 5-star review on Amazon for the book 6 Pillars of Intimacy, The Secret to an Extraordinary Marriage. And this person says, I was really struggling with anxiety in our marriage. I knew something was killing me inside, but just couldn't figure out what. This book gave a lot of clarity on why I was feeling so many things. I have been making small steps to be more present. It hasn't been long, but I can see the small changes in how we interact.
I love it. Wow. And what a blessing to hear something like that from the book we wrote almost 4 years ago now, Elisa.
Actually, yeah, as this episode releases, it'll be just about 4 years.
Yeah. And so to see something like this, it's just what a blessing to touch someone's life through what we've written, what you've written. I was part of it, it's with Tony DiLorenzo, but it's just amazing. And the piece that I love about this is I've been making small steps. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beautiful part. Each and every week we come here to share something around the 6 pillars of intimacy, mm-hmm. and what small steps can we make. Those big giant leaps, like we want to go across the Grand Canyon type stuff, doesn't happen as often as we like, but I know we can take small steps to being extraordinary each and every day. So I love it.
And I love we've been talking about steps across the Grand Canyon, I think, for probably almost all 15 and a half, 16 years of this episode or this podcast. And I was recently speaking at a women's event, and I used the analogy about the Grand Canyon and how because think about it. Like when you're feeling disconnected in your marriage, it really does feel like you are on opposite sides of the Grand Canyon. But they initially looked at me because it was here in Southwest Florida, and I'm like, maybe it's a West Coast reference. I don't know, but the Grand Canyon, it was just
big.
It's big. It's big. I guess it would be like across the Everglades here in Southwest Florida, but it was just funny to hear you say that. And, jumping into today's episode, Tony had said at the top that we're talking about the art and science of non-sexual touch. And I just want to say from the get-go that the science is going to really lean heavily on like why it matters, what it does to our body, that type of thing. And the art aspect of this episode is going to be, what works for us individually and in our marriage. And so I just want you to know that's how it's going to come together. Non-sexual touch, this is your physical intimacy. So as Tony was saying, at the very top, our episodes do revolve around the 6 pillars of intimacy. And one of the things that was so important in writing that and releasing that book 4 years ago was to separate physical intimacy, the non-sexual touch, from sexual intimacy, because so often, what I hear in marriage coaching, what I hear in conversations with folks is that there's a silent epidemic that I really think is just impacting a tremendous number of marriages. And it's the lack of touch, non-sexual touch, specifically outside of the bedroom, right? Because, we've said it so many times on this show, right? You can't be having sex 24/7. So how are the two of you touching, connecting the other, there's 168 hours in the week. So you all know how often you're having sex. I'm not going to make any assumptions and put numbers out there. But when you're touching outside the bedroom, when you're engaged in that non-sexual touch, it is one of the simplest ways to say, I see you, to say, I love you, to say, you matter to me, to say, hey, I'm purposefully connecting with you, because you have to move your body in some way, shape, or hands. I mean, think about your hand, your arm, your lips, your head, your legs, if you're playing, your feet, if you're playing footsie. Like, you have to deliberately, intentionally move a part of your body to connect to your spouse's body.
And one of the things I wanted to say about it, because it's interesting as you were mentioning that, and it's the moments. It's those small gestures sometimes that can mean everything. And yet, it's how we frame it and how we see it. Because Elisa can touch me sometimes and it's just sort of like, okay, cool. And yet, when I reframe it and I go, this is a moment of connection that I get to have with my wife, it really does switch the intentionality in how I receive it and how I even perceive it from her giving that to me. And I will say there are many a times where it's just sort of like, whatever. And yet when I can reframe that and just go, oh, like she's making an effort. Let me enjoy this moment. That's where I think sometimes in physical intimacy, we miss it. Because it's, again, it's not this grandioso, it's not the rockets, it's not the climax, it's not the ejaculation. It's the fingers just touching the top of your hand. It's the nails rubbing your head. Those moments, those physical intimacy moments, non-sexual moments matter.
I'm going to go off on a slight tangent here.
You go on your tangent.
Because as you were talking, I just kind of had this flash. So many of you that listen to this podcast, I know you have taken the 5 love languages quiz, or you've read the 5 love languages book, and one or both of you may have physical touch as a primary or, top 2-3 love language. And that is part of the reason why we are doing an episode like this, because I can't tell you how often in coaching sessions it's come up where it's like, well, Lisa, my love language is physical touch. And I'm like, great. Now we've got another data point, piece of information. What the heck does that mean? And that's why understanding the art and science behind non-sexual touch is so important, because for all of you that have physical touch as your love language, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that sex is not what that always means. And I feel pretty confident doing that because I've been a marriage coach for almost 14 years now. And I have had a boatload of conversations talking to people about touch, about what they want, about what this looks like. And it's not all sex. And that's why we have to talk about it, right? That's why we have to go into this, because let's jump into a little bit of the science. Research shows that non-sexual affectionate touch, this is your hugging, your hand holding, your cuddling, is strongly correlated with relationship satisfaction and emotional bonding. Think about that. The non-sexual touch has a correlation to how satisfied you feel about your relationship and how bonded you feel to the other person. Another study found that affectionate touch predicts greater perceived partner responsiveness and increased intimacy the next day. So the touch today isn't just for today. It will have a ripple effect. This is why if we get into like more frequent touching, if we understand what works for our spouse, if we make it more of a pattern, a ritual in our marriages, then that ripple effect of perceived partner responsiveness, like, can we just talk about this? So often it's like, well, they don't engage with me. They don't. All of that's responsiveness, the conversations, the engagement. What if touch, that non-sexual touch, helps to unlock some of that responsiveness that you have been desiring so much?
Can I say something right there?
You absolutely can.
And I cannot find the episode, but maybe you remember. This also is not just from a waking hours. This is also when we are in bed, cuddling, touching feet. That is still that non-sexual touch that is happening. And I want to say we did an episode somewhere around talking about sleeping in separate beds or separate bedrooms or something of that nature, and just talking about why that can be detrimental to your marriage. And we went into it there. I'm going to see if I can find it. I can't remember the name of it or anything, but I just want to say, like, this.
It's another opportunity for touch.
Yeah, that physical intimacy isn't just during our waking hours. There are many a times, and I've shared it before here in the podcast, that for Elisa and I, there was a time where sleeping naked and cuddling, that was our physical intimacy. Mm-hmm. And many of you may understand this with littles running around. Like you feel like you're touched out from the littles, or you two don't have the opportunity to get this physical intimacy, this non-sexual touch during the day, because it's sort of like, I got a kid in my hand, another one's over here with snot on me. And even when you sit on the couch.
Mm-hmm. Kids in between and all the things.
Right, you just don't have that opportunity. And yet when we go to bed and we make that time and the opportunity to connect, it can draw us closer together.
Funny you mentioned the bed, because I was just talking to another coach the other day, not in the marriage space, but she's a coach, and she was talking about the fact, she goes, I'm the little spoon. And we went off on this tangent of, big spoon, little spoon, and who's the spoon, and that type of thing. And there's reasons behind that, because another study that was published showed that non-sexual affectionate touch, and there's many, many studies around this, releases oxytocin and reduces stress, which helps couples feel safe and connected. So if you look at just what we've shared, stronger relationship satisfaction, more responsiveness, increased intimacy, feeling safe and connected. See, so when you stop touching one another, it's not just the absence of physical contact. You lose all of those other components, right? They turn into like all of those micro moments are like, it was just a kiss, Elisa, or it's just, one time that we're not sitting next to each other on the couch. And please hear me. We are not perfect at this. We are not, preaching from the mountaintop. This is something that Tony and I continuously work on, because, in different ages and different stages, different situations, circumstances, there's an adjustment that needs to be made.
Well, and I was just talking about how cuddling was very important to us. Well, as Elisa was beginning perimenopause and hot flashes and everything that was going on, that all got disrupted. What we had been doing, the way we would connect with our physical intimacy, lying naked in bed, no longer was happening. And there was a disconnect happening in our marriage. And some months went by, and I finally was like, we got an issue here. Like, something is not the way it's been. Mm-hmm. And Elisa and I had to work through that and discuss it. And how do we connect in this physical intimacy when what we had been doing for years is no longer working? And so we've been through the different stages and ages, and still to this day working through some of that stuff.
Well, and you hit on a good point, and this is, looking at the science aspect of it from a slightly different lens, but, postpartum and perimenopause, mm-hmm. Two of the three Ps, the other one is puberty. That's a whole nother story when you're dealing with teenagers and like where they're at. But postpartum and perimenopause, how the body is changing so rapidly, and the touches that used to work, or, connections that used to happen, don't happen in the same way. And that's really where we start getting into, what's the art behind non-sexual touch? What is it that's going to work for us now in this place? How do we communicate around that? Because as you've probably figured out, this is not going to come as a revelation to most of you, but the non-sexual touches that are meaningful to you are not the same ones that are meaningful to everybody else, and very likely are not the same ones that are meaningful to your spouse, which complicates things in so many ways. Because I will sit across from couples and I will hear, we don't hug anymore, or every touch feels like it's got strings attached, or it used to be so natural and now it feels awkward. And that's why, coming back to this idea of, hey, there is a science to it. It does matter to our mental health, to our relational health, to our emotional health. But let's get into the art of it and figure out what works for us. Mm-hmm. And I love this, because we've asked the one family many times over the years, hey, what touches are meaningful to you? And here are some of the ones that got shared.
Yeah. Top of the docket here: back rubs, back tickles, back scratches, holding hands with our fingers interlocked, spooning. I think that would be my favorite anyways. I don't know if it's yours. I enjoy it. Running fingers through my hair, For those of you who are bald, maybe it's just rubbing your head.
I hear that from a lot of men, actually. Other ones, gentle touches on my face, a hand on my neck, lower back, arm, or shoulder. The butt slaps. This is another one for Tony. Bottom, butt, whatever word you use. Hand on butt. Kisses on the forehead or neck. Hugs, and especially those surprise hugs from behind. And, I love this list because it literally, could be every single part of the body. None of them, are inherently sexual. They could potentially lead to sexual intimacy. But the idea is that if you look at this list or maybe some other ideas that you even thought of just listening to this episode, you start to recognize that maybe your bodies have just forgotten how to connect. Maybe it's been so long, maybe because of health reasons or raising children, right? Because when they're all over you, you can feel touched out and you're like, what's going to work for us? Or maybe has been hot flashes or, something along the aging process. And you're just like, how do we do this? But it's stepping back into an episode like this one and saying, let's reconnect. Let's figure out how to make this work instead of saying, I don't know what works for us now. We're going to talk about that after this break. Elisa here. Can we talk about skincare for a minute? As I've gotten older, I realized I don't want my beauty routine getting more complicated. Between work, marriage, and everything else that life throws at us, I don't necessarily have time for a 10-step regimen. That's why I love Go Pure Neck Cream. It's literally one product that does exactly what it promises, makes my neck and chest look amazing. I used to think I needed multiple serums, treatments, and creams to address the aging I was seeing on my neck, but Go Pure simplified everything. One step, morning and night, and my skin looks smoother and more youthful. What really sold me was how effortless it is. Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones, and Go Pure is proof of that. With over 1 million jars sold, this beauty secret is no longer a secret. For a limited time, our listeners get 25% off Go Pure with code MARRIAGE at checkout. Just head to gopure.com, use code MARRIAGE, and you're all set. And after you buy, do us a favor. When they ask where you heard about Go Pure, tell them it was from our show. I've been seeing Jones Road Beauty everywhere for years, and I'm so excited to finally try it. As a busy wife, I'm all about simplicity, especially when it comes to my face. I want to look good, and I want to be able to achieve that in a short amount of time. I can do the multiple steps, but having the ability to put my face on in 60 seconds, that's awesome. Plus, I love just being able to get up and go with a face that feels so put together. Their Miracle Balm can replace my highlighter, bronzer, blush, and lip tint. One product, multiple uses, yes, please. Plus, Jones Road's formulas are actually good for your skin, packed with nourishing ingredients and no harsh chemicals. Modern day makeup that's clean, strategic, and multifunctional for effortless routines. For a limited time, our listeners are getting a free cool gloss on their first purchase when they use code OEM at checkout. Just head to jonesroadbeauty.com and use code OEM at checkout. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. We're back. And we're talking about this art and science of non-sexual touch and really stepping into, let's move away from I don't know what to do to what can we do? Right? I mean, in every chapter around the 6 pillars of intimacy in the book, there are a couple of sections. One's baby steps. And then the other 2 that I think are so important for every chapter are what can I do and what can we do? And as we're talking about, the art and science of non-sexual touch and making this, like, what can we do? Well, first of all, start small, right? Don't go from we haven't been touching to this place where it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to like be smushed together on the couch every night, right? That's not going to happen. It's going to feel awkward. But can you be committed? I mean, I had a couple months ago now, and their small step was doing a kissing challenge. And so they're like, we're going to have an intentional kiss every day for 7 days, right?
Wow. So
that was just that small and clear. They knew that it was going to stretch them because they'd kind of gotten into the, peck and passing. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that phrase, peck and passing. And so it was small and clear. Allowed them to go, how do we commit to this? And they could both get on board because it was a manageable, intentional time.
We did a series called The Kissing Game.
That was a COVID series.
That was episode 603 was part 1, our kissing patterns. Part 2 was the science of a kiss. Part 3 was what keeps us from kissing. and part 4 was your kissing challenge. So I'll put a link to the first one, and then I'm pretty sure that has all the other ones in there. But I thought that was a really interesting one. We got a lot of great feedback from it, and even, the science of kissing, which also ties in with where we are. Yeah, because it's just an interesting place to be, because so many of us used to have those passionate kisses, and they sort of fade out over time. And so what does it look like to bring that back in, and maybe even have your own kissing challenge as a way to strengthen that physical intimacy? So that's that. And then the other one I wanted to share just real quick is we have an episode called Separate Beds.
Oh, that's the one you were referencing earlier in the episode.
That was episode 215.
So for reference, those of you that are listening to this episode, this is number 886.
Yeah.
600 plus episodes.
Here's the interesting though. April 15th, 2014, that episode was dropped. This is well before we had ever come up with the 6 pillars of intimacy. And this is the way God works sometimes. And I just love it, because I'm reading the description, which we didn't have much of a description back in the day. But it says, when you leave your marriage bed and begin to sleep in separate beds, it can be the beginning to the end to your physical intimacy, as well as emotional intimacy. And so I'm going to put this episode there. Please be kind. That was in our second year, just the start of our third year of podcasting, the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. So I have not listened to it. I don't know what we said in it, but I think it might be one of those that we do listen to again and maybe revise that, because it's been some years since we've had to, since we've done that.
And we've had a lot of conversations about sleeping in separate beds.
So I'll put these 2 episodes in here. And the reason I love to do this for you guys is because I know some of you are newer listeners and you're like, Tony and Elisa, there's a lot of episodes. Where do I start? What do I listen to? Some of you love just starting from the beginning and going through. I get it. I love to put these in here for you guys, because something may catch you and you're like, oh, I want to go deeper in that. Okay, well, cool. Like, go deeper in that, because this is your journey to an extraordinary marriage. And if we can help you listen to something or get an idea somewhere, then let's go do it.
So funny. I was just about to turn 40 when that episode dropped. That's crazy. It's crazy what happens when you have a podcast that's almost 16 years old, because you just think about all of those timestamps. But coming back to, what do the 2 of you do, right? You start small, you get clear. Define what touch and what this idea of non-sexual touch means for both of you. What makes you feel connected? What feels pressuring? Like, go on this place. I was literally talking to a coaching couple last night, and the husband used the word, he talked about, like, in the early days of getting to know one another, how it was all about discovery. And I love that word. And I think we need to bring it into this conversation. What can you discover about your spouse right now? What can you learn about the touches that are meaningful? And maybe you 2 need to experiment a little bit, because it's been so flippin' long since you've touched each other that you're not even sure. So you might have to try back rubs or massages or hand holding or kissing a forehead or spooning or cuddling or whatever that is, to go, hey, does this work? And you might have to try a couple times to be like, I don't know, let's try it again. But getting into that place of, what is the definition for the 2 of us now? Additionally, build some rituals around touch, whether that is, you roll over in bed every morning and the first thing you do before you grab your phone, before you get out of bed and, start the marathon that's going to be your day. Maybe that's where you snuggle and you have a good morning kiss. Maybe like us, one of the rituals that I work on, I'm still not perfect at it, but I feel like I've gotten a little better. Y'all can ask Tony, is being more intentional with touch in the car. Of, hey, we're in the car. Let me put my hand on his shoulder. It's not always on his leg, because sometimes I like holding his shoulder. He's got great shoulders. But more intentional touch in the car. Maybe it's before you get into bed, or before you go to sleep, and there's the cuddle and the snuggle and the kissing there. Or you're understanding what type of connection is meaningful to the 2 of you.
And I was going to say, just as in any other marriage or any marriage, you have 2 people grew up differently, how they see physical intimacy, how they approach it. Elisa and I are no different. I grew up in an Italian family, in a large Italian family. We all grew up in the same town. It was not uncommon for me to kiss my mom, my dad, my aunts, my uncle, my nonna, my cousins we would hug. Like, I grew up in a very physical, intimate environment.
And I did not.
And Elisa did not. And so I am very okay with like just hugging her and touching her and all of that. And Elisa can sometimes be like, enough. I got it. Like,
thank you. I'm good.
I got it. And so that is the art part of marriage. It is that ebb and flow of like, well, I need more, but you're not giving it to me. Or I need less and you're giving me too much. And so how do you work through that in different times? How do you express that to one another so you don't get irritated with your spouse or you begin to reject your spouse? Those are all the nuancy pieces of marriage that sometimes we have to work through. And it doesn't always work out right. And yet we can still come together and find a common place where we can go, this is it. So I just want to share that with you because some of you may be like, well, I'll touch my wife all day long, or I'll touch my husband all day long, but he doesn't want it or she doesn't want it. I get it. I've been there. And that's what marriage is, though. It's the two becoming one. It's a bit of a compromise at time. I don't always get what I want. Elisa doesn't always get what she wants. We compromise. We come together because the two together are stronger than one. I'd rather hold Elisa's hand, 3 times a week than not have her by my side or whatever that may be, because I know we're stronger together. And I'm a better man because of my beautiful wife who is beside me. And so a lot of this we can get very put off. We can feel rejected. And yet I think sometimes we got to go, wait a minute, how do we just compromise a little bit? How do we make this work for us? What does it look like?
Well, and that's where the conversations come in, right? I mean, we've been talking about physical intimacy, non-sexual touch, but there's also the aspect and the component of emotional intimacy. And, Tony touched on it. Some of you might be like me, where you're just a little bit more hesitant to touch, where it is more hard, uncomfortable, awkward, you fill in the blank. And, stepping into this place of how do you communicate that? Right? I've had to tell Tony sometimes it's too much touch, and that's not and I've had to learn to phrase it and to be able to explain it that it's not a rejection of him. It's just, I am literally overstimulated and it's hard for me to process any more touch. And as opposed to just being like, no, don't touch me. Those are two totally different conversations. Or if you are able to share why touch is hard or it's tricky, then you start stepping into a place of honesty and vulnerability, which again creates opportunities for connection. With that, looking at both sides of this, when you do engage in that touch, please acknowledge it. I spend way too much time across from couples who are thrilled that their spouses touch them, are happy to get those micro moments of connection, but they don't necessarily voice it. They don't tell their spouse, hey, that was really nice. One, because they're afraid that if they say something, their spouse will stop. That's a whole nother layer to this. But also because they just think their spouse knows that they appreciate it. And I would say in both instances, if you're worried they're going to stop, say it anyhow, because it's important to you to acknowledge it. If you're in that place of, I think they should just know, they need to hear it. Especially in long-term marriages, we need to hear that what we're doing is appreciated.
Yeah.
And as you do all of that, notice the ripple effect. Notice what happens when you start to feel more connected, when you start to see the responsiveness change, when you have those feelings of safety and connection, because the two of you are working, not perfecting. Please hear me. You're working on your non-sexual touch, on your physical intimacy. We're not trying to be perfect. We are couples in motion, couples in progress, working towards becoming extraordinary.
Yep. And we got a challenge for you as we look at your physical intimacy. So for the next 7 days, share 5 intentional non-sexual touches each day. And at the end of the week, ask each other, which touch made you feel closest to me this week? You'll be surprised how quickly those tiny moments change everything else. So when you blend the science and the art of everyday connection, you discover how powerful simple physical closeness can be inside and outside the bedroom. And so this week, go out there, go have some physical intimacy. Go enjoy one another. Go have those touches, non-sexual touches. Take on the challenge. We're in a busy and full time of year. And so this might be what's needed to keep you guys connected. So as we enter into a new year, we're not unraveling downward, but we're going upward. We're strengthening. We're having that extraordinary marriage that we desire. You guys have yourself a fantastic week. We are truly honored and blessed to have you part of the One family. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.